Question 1. Define inflation and explain what is meant by the forecast of 1.5% to 2.3% inflation in Malaysia for 2025. Inflation means the overall price of goods and services keep increasing over time. When prices go up, the value of money goes down, and people can buy fewer things with the same amount of money. For example, if a drink costs 2 ringgit this year and becomes 2 ringgit 10 cent next year, that is inflation. According to Bank Negara Malaysia, BNM, Malaysia's inflation in 2025 is expected to be between 1.5% and 2.3%. This means that price will rise only a little. For example, for every 100 ringgit you spent last year, you might spend around 101 ringgit and 50 cent to 102 ringgit and 30 cent this year for the same item. These forecasts show that Malaysia's inflation is low and stable. It means prices are not rising too fast, so people can still afford most goods and services. A stable inflation rate is good for the economy because it helps both consumers and businesses plan their spending and investments. The article also says that Malaysia's economy grew by 4.4% in the second quarter of 2025, supported by strong household spending and investment activity. This shows that even though prices are slowly increasing, the economy is still doing well. It's a sign of healthy economic growth with stable price that something every country wants to achieve.
Question 2. If inflation is expected to remain low, explain how this could influence Bank Negara Malaysia decision to cut interest rate. When inflation is expected to remain low, such as Bank Negara Malaysia forecast of 1.5% to 2.3% in 2025. It shows that prices in the economy are stable and there is little upward pressure on costs. This situation gives BNM more flexibility to adjust its monetary policy, as lowering interest rate will not create excessive inflation. When inflation is low and stable, BNM can safely reduce the overnight policy rate to encourage borrowing and spending. A lower OPR makes loan cheaper for household and business. For consumer, this means lower cost for housing or car loans, while for business, it reduces financing costs for investment and expansion. This effect helped to boost domestic demand and overall economic growth. For instance, in July 2025, BNM reduced the OPR from 3% to 2.75%. This move was intended to support Malaysia's economic growth while keeping inflation under control. While cheaper financing, individuals and companies are encouraged to spend and invest more, strengthen the economic recovery momentum. Low inflation also builds confidence among consumers and investors, as they can plan their finance with more certainty about future price. This encourages higher consumption and long-term investment. On the other hand, if inflation were high, lowering interest rate will risk increasing price further. But when inflation is low, the central bank can focus more on stimulating economic activity rather than fighting inflation. In conclusion, when inflation is expected to stay low, Bank Negara Malaysia has greater room to cut interest rate to promote borrowing, investment and spending. This help to drive economic growth while maintaining stable price, showing the balance BNM to achieve between price stability and economic expansion.
Question 3. Discuss how a lower inflation rate affects consumer purchasing power. When inflation is low, it means price in the economy stay quite stable and value of money doesn't fall quickly. So, people can buy more goods and service with the same amount of money. In other words, their purchasing power improves because their income can stretch further. For example, if the price of things like food and fuel stay affordable, families can manage their daily expenses more easily. They might even have some extra money to save or spend on other needs. This really helps to ease the cost of living and improve people's overall welfare. Low inflation also gives consumers more confidence. When prices are stable, people can plan their spending and make financial decisions like buying a house or investing without worrying too much about future price increase. So, overall, a lower inflation rate means stronger purchasing power, stable living costs, and a better quality of life for consumers.
Question 3. Discuss how a lower inflation rate affects business investment decisions. Stable price reduce uncertainty, making it easier for business to plan long-term investment. Low inflation also means lower interest rates, which reduce borrowing costs. However, if inflation is too low, firms might see slow sales growth, which can reduce profit expectation. Government fiscal policy. Low inflation reduces the government's need for cost of living subsidies and wage adjustments. It also keeps government debt interest payments stable. However, the government may still use expansionary fiscal policy to encourage demand if growth slows. Low inflations go to stable price, go to higher real income, more consumer spending, business investment will increase, and economic growth will increase.
Question 4. Should the government continue providing subsidies and cash handout if inflation is expected to remain low? When inflation is low, the government should not completely stop giving subsidies or cash handouts, but it should review and adjust them based on the current situation. In the short term, keeping some subsidies and cash help, such as Bantuan Tunai Rakyat (BTR), is still important. This program helps people afford basic items like food, petrol, and electricity, especially for lower income families. The article from Business Today 2025 said that Malaysia inflation is expected to stay low at 1.5% to 2.3%, meaning prices are stable, but some people may still struggle with living costs. Keeping short-term aid helps maintain household spending and support the domestic economy, especially when global trade is uncertain. In the long term,
However, giving too many subsidies can hurt the government's finance. It means the government has to spend a lot of money every year, leaving less for important areas like education, healthcare, or development projects. It can also cause people to depend too much on government help instead of improving their own income or productivity. So, the best solution is for the government to gradually reduce general subsidies and move toward targeted assistance, meaning only those who truly need help, such as low-income groups or small businesses, will receive support. This way, Malaysia can keep its economy strong, fair, and sustainable without putting too much pressure on the national budget.